Hello, this is my first check-in. So I've been reading First Takes on Teaching Literary Elements, right? And so just to briefly go back over my big idea questions that I had two. So the first one is, what are the best ways to teach British literature to students that feel they're so far removed? And then the second one is how to effectively teach students how to read when there's a wide range of literacies, how to best differentiate instruction to meet diverse needs. And going back on that first question, although this book doesn't necessarily talk about like Shakespeare, it still does have a lot of different activities and tasks that I could pull from this to help students better comprehend text as such. So let's get into it. I read the first 4 chapters, so the foreword definitely stood out to me. It was a quote or comment about how the education system seems to be turning adolescents into novice structuralists. They gave an example of like all these AP exams and basically just teaching to the test. And just having students learn in such a rigid structure that nobody enjoys, not the teachers, not the students. Engagement is low, right? And we're just teaching them so they can jump through this hurdle, basically. And so as we got into chapter 1, it emphasized being mindful of the why. What is the purpose? And so something I kind of want to get from this, because as I've been teaching, honestly, I haven't even been thinking about it, but like essential questions. Not gonna lie, I have not been telling my students the essential questions of the unit. It is not something I even think about. And even when we have to write on our boards like the standards and the agenda and all these things, I think I actually want to include the essential questions in the unit and just keep it on the board for the entire unit so that students are aware of the purpose. Like, what is our purpose in even reading this? What am I expecting them to get out of it? So they're just always being mindful of that why and knowing how it actually affects them. And so in chapter 2 and 3, for chapter 2, 3, and 4, it kind of went more in depth with actual activities that could be done. And so it was really honing in on these characterization pieces and transferring knowledge. But kind of rewinding, I want to go back to chapter 1. Not only does it emphasize not only did it emphasize like making sure the students know the purpose of the lessons, but also focusing on the how, right? And not just the what. So not just throwing definitions like what is a metaphor, what is a alliteration, but how does this impact this text? Why does it matter? And that's something that I definitely want to do more of. I feel like I've been doing more of just teaching definitions. An example it even gave in the book was we have students underlining a simile. And like, okay, cool, they know what a simile is. They can spot it out in the text, but why does that even matter? How does this affect the text? How does this affect these characters? And so I definitely, as I'm even reading a book right now, we're reading The Other Westmore, I want to get, they have even though it's kind of like a memoir, I guess, in which would it still has a lot of literary techniques and things like that, so a lot of imagery. And so I stop all the time and say, okay, what literary technique is being used here? And I say, how do you know? But I think I should, instead of just saying what literary technique is this and how do you know, I kind of want to say, I think I want to change my questioning to, why does this matter? How does this affect the text? How does this affect these characters? So I'm probably even going to do that tomorrow as we start reading, because I do think it's important to know that how, more than just, I mean, they go hand in hand. You do need to know the definition, but you also need to know how does this affect the text. That's getting into those critical thinking, transferable skills. And that's a lot of what 2, 3, and 4 emphasized, was focusing on the transferable skills. And so another thing that was mentioned that I didn't even realize was the discussion piece. I gave a lot of examples of how to get students actually on task and talking about the work, but actually hosting discussions. And so I want to try that as well in my classes, because I noticed that I haven't, like last semester, I didn't really do any discussions, any whole class or small group discussions. And so that's something I definitely want to incorporate, just getting students thinking about other perspectives and other cultures in reference to themselves, in reference to the essential questions, in reference to the big picture. So I'm definitely excited for reading this book. And so those are a few things I've been learning that I want to try out in my classroom. They had a ton of activities that can be used for character analysis. I think that'll be definitely perfect as my semester goes on. So